Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter where you are on this fine planet of ours. I am delighted to have you join us today as we are doing another compelling webinar in the IDML 13 webinar series. So, what does that mean to you? That means you get to participate in a live conversation lots of different ways. You get to hear from our guest speaker, whom you're going to meet shortly. And best of all, you get to just to brainstorm and be part of the conversation, and then share the lessons learned with your friends, your peers, your professional counterparts, and together we're going to have fun in the process. My name is Daryl Prail. I'll be your host today, and let me tell you how the process works here. It's very straightforward. If everything's going to plan, you should see a screen right now that says Introductions and Logistics. And the big thing here is I want to tell you how to talk to the rest of the community. So we're using a service called GoToWebinar, and that has a control panel. You probably have it in your upper right-hand corner. And in that control panel is a questions window. And if you go there and submit your questions or comments, we'll respond to you in real time. And the point of this is for you to ask our guest speaker, Michelle Pacansky Brock, any questions related to this conversation. And we'll answer those questions either in text back to you or midstream as she's doing her dialogue or after the core content is done. So do it that way. One of the questions people always ask us is, can I see the other, people who are listening to this? And there is a way. It's called Twitter. So how do you go and participate in the conversation? Go to Twitter. Instead of using the questions function of the GoToWebinar control panel, go to Twitter and just make sure your post references the hashtag IDML13. You see it there on the bottom of your screen. So that's how you participate in the live conversation with everybody else. In today's webinar, we're going to give you multiple links to participate. And when I mean participate, I mean actually watch videos. So at least in 2 different sessions, we're going to take a time out while you go to YouTube and watch a video. We'll send you those links. We'll send them to you on Twitter, and we'll send them to you through the control panel. Either way you want to, just keep an eye out on that. And if you're kind enough, repeat those links, retweet them, so others can see them too. That's the exciting part about the live conversation going on here. But let me talk to you about our guest, Michelle Pacansky Brock. Michelle is a director of academic services at Academic Partnerships and an online associate faculty at Mount San Jacinto College. She began her academic career as a full-time community college instructor and has blossomed into a passionate, lifelong learner who explores how emerging technologies are reshaping learning. She's also the author of Best Practices for Teaching with Emerging Technologies, and you'll love this, she has a new ebook coming out soon that you might be interested in. It is called How to Humanize Your Online Class with VoiceThread. So, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Daryl. I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to go ahead and launch my presentation now. Do I have the screen?
I'm going to give you the screen shortly. One thing I want to point out here, folks, is you're going to see in your screen, if you haven't seen it already, a couple of things that are really important. A, she's giving you some links here to some resources. Check those out, but we will send them out post-show in an email if you miss it. Second, her Twitter ID is at BROCANSKY, Pacansky. All right, so follow her now while you're waiting. While we're doing that, Michelle, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to make you the presenter. And what's exciting about that, folks, is because she's going to give some demos, not just the videos, but she actually going to give a demo. I'm not going to give it away, but the demo's really cool.
Yes, we have lots of great stuff for you today. It's going to be fun, so I hope you're all excited to be here. Well, as Daryl shared, I am an online instructor. I am also Director of Academic Services at Academic Partnerships. I do lots of different things, and I love sharing so much of what I've learned through my teaching and learning experiences. And that's largely what I'm going to be doing here today, is really sharing some stories and what I've learned along the way as an educator, and a lot of what I've learned from my online students as well. I'm going to get started by sharing a story. When I started teaching online gosh, about 10 years ago now, I started using the tools within my learning management system to communicate with my students and foster interactions between my students. And I think that that's, typically the way that most online instructors start teaching online. And these tools that I was using at the time were written announcements and discussion forums. I should say that the course that I was teaching online at the time was Online Art Appreciation. Okay, so a very visually centric course. After a couple of years, I began to feel too distanced from my students, and I could feel that I wanted to find ways to share more of my presence in my class. This was about 2006 or so it was before the dawn of YouTube, by the way. And so I started experimenting and learning how to do podcasts and things like that, and I started recording just simple MP3 files and also giving my students text files and letting them make the choice. Hey, you could listen to this content or you could read it. And I quickly began to realize that sharing my ideas and my thoughts in voice rather than just through my written words alone, by doing that I was able to increase my own teaching presence. And it was clear to me that that was increasing my students' engagement. I could feel that right away. And it was motivating them to learn and succeed more week after week. Now that was the first step, but it was really only the tip of the iceberg. After that, after introducing podcasting and those MP3 files into my class to deliver the content to my students, I began to experiment with VoiceThread, and that's really kind of what we're here today to talk about. Now, VoiceThread provides me and my students the option to participate in convenient time-shifted conversations, so just like discussion forums, asynchronous conversations, but we participate in them either in text, voice, or in video using a webcam. So I gradually started transitioning away from using discussion forums and mixing in a combination of blog assignments and VoiceThread assignments into my classes, and that's what I started doing. Now I have a vivid memory that I just want to reflect on for a moment. It was one particular student comment. I think it was from my first semester teaching with VoiceThread. It must have been. It was a voice comment that a student had left, and in the comment she was interpreting a painting that was on the screen shared in the center of the VoiceThread. And this type of interpretation activity was really just the same kind of general activity that I had developed in discussion forums previously. But I distinctly remember pressing play on that VoiceThread comment and listening to my students speak. And I remember getting chills listening to my students speak, listening to her voice and listening to her reflect on the painting, reflect as she looked at that painting, and listen to the emotion and the empathy in her voice. And that comment was a real turning point for me as an educator. It made me think about how different learning is when we learn out loud. It made me think about how it's different cognitively, emotionally, as well as socially. I started to think about how it's different for the student and also how it provides unique assessment opportunities for me as an educator. And I still think a lot about that, and this is many, many years later. And so that's where I want to start this today. Granting my online students the option to learn out loud had presented a really interesting opportunity to me all those years ago, and I wanted to explore that further. But at this point, there was a challenge for me, because I found that when I was giving my students the option to comment in text, voice, or video, not a whole lot of them were choosing voice or video. I had only about a quarter of my students that wanted to just reach out and use the voice or video. So, I had this opportunity in front of me, but I had this challenge. How could I increase the percentage of students who were participating in voice? And I knew early on that one barrier was student access to technology. So our objectives for today, moving forward for the rest of the presentation today, are to demonstrate how VoiceThread Mobile increases student access to voice and video participation And also, of course, keeping our focus on pedagogy, think about how this affects students. I think sometimes when we talk about mobile learning, if we keep our ear to the ground, and this is something I do a lot when I listen to faculty talk and talk about using mobile tools in learning or mobile learning, we often hear a tendency of kind of reluctance. Well, all my students don't have access to mobile phones yet or mobile devices, and even though we really are getting close to this complete penetration rate, there's still some reluctance there. And so I'm coming about this very differently and thinking about how using a tool like VoiceThread that is a web-based tool with the augmentation of a mobile device, we're looking at mobile as an opportunity to basically expand access. And I think that's a really beautiful way to embrace mobile learning. And then we're also going to demonstrate how to access content and comment using VoiceThread Mobile, and that'll be really cool. I'm going to actually do a demo with the iPad app, and I hope you enjoy that. This is the VoiceThread interface. What you're looking at here is a screenshot of an actual slide from a VoiceThread. This is not the mobile app, though. This is actually the standard app, so the web-based app. I'm going to show you what this looks like, so when we go to the mobile app, you'll see that there's some differences between the two, because that's really important to understand. As I mentioned, VoiceThread is an asynchronous cloud-based, it offers asynchronous cloud-based conversations around media. And so what that means is you upload your media. You can upload images, you can upload videos, you can upload presentation slides. So for example, what you're seeing here is a presentation slide. And you have those conversations in voice, video, or text. Now, when you create a VoiceThread, it automatically becomes available to users through voicethread.com, which is accessible to users through standard-based web browsers. So you access voicethread.com through a laptop, through a desktop computer. It runs in Flash. That's important to know. But VoiceThread, those VoiceThreads that you create are also available to users through VoiceThread Mobile, which is supported. It supports iPhones and iPads right now. There's an Android app in development. And also VoiceThread Universal. And I want to mention that because it's important to note that VoiceThread is available in an HTML version, and that makes it accessible to students who rely upon full screen readers. For example, a student who is blind and could not navigate the Flash player. And so I just wanted to point that out as well. And of course, the mobile app makes a really big difference because of the fact that VoiceThread, the standard VoiceThread player, is built in Flash. So even if you're on an iPad and if you're navigating the web and you came to a VoiceThread, that VoiceThread is not going to appear on your iPad because it's Flash-based, but you could access it through the mobile app. So just important to understand how that workflow works. But what I'm trying to point out here is if you were a person, for example, an instructor creating a VoiceThread, you don't have to do anything extra to make that content available to users, for example, your students. You just have to share the VoiceThread with the people that you want to have access to it, and it's available to them through those multiple access options. So as I pointed out, the center area or the central media area is where your media uploads onto the slides, and those could be image files, presentation slides, videos, or documents. You can also use the app to create content. It's really not terribly robust for that purpose. It's better to use the standard application, the web-based application, to create content. But I've had success using the app to create VoiceThreads with images. Videos gets a little bit more challenging, but you could drag in videos from an iPhone or an iPad. I recommend not pulling in videos that are more than a minute long or so, and it really works better if you're connected to Wi-Fi. But it is possible to create from the app as well. And then these little square faces that you see lining the edges of the central media, those are little avatars of the users who have visited the slide and left a comment, okay? And so essentially those people have clicked the comment button that you see down at the bottom center of the image. They have been given options for how to comment, and they've left their comment, they've saved it, and their avatar has been saved to the side of the slide. Now, if I wanted to play this slide, if I would just click the play button at the bottom, and those comments would play back just like a movie would, or I could click on each avatar and go between each one and toggle between each comment as well. And I want to point out that VoiceThreads can be very simple, or they can be really rich and dynamic. So here I have a panned out view of all of the slides in this VoiceThread, and you can see the red frame there is highlighting the slide that we've been looking at. It's actually one slide out of 33 slides in this VoiceThread. So some of the VoiceThread activities that I create for my classes are very, very complex, and I know this is hard to see, but I have them broken down by part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and so I'm really organizing the content around particular photographers. This is from my history photography class, so my students are staying focused on what topic areas we're covering. And the beginning of my VoiceThreads, they start with a title slide, instructions, tips, grading rubric, and those sorts of things as well. Now, what this slide illustrates is the two different interfaces. So on the left, you're seeing what it would look like if you were to click on the comment button and you were in the standard VoiceThread interface. And over on the right, you would see what it would look like if you were on the mobile version. This is a screenshot taken from the iPhone app. And I've clicked on comment, and you'll see that I have the option here over on the right, the mobile screenshot. It gives me the option to click on the ABC, which could give me the option to leave a text comment. The little microphone would allow me to leave a voice comment, and the last icon there is the webcam. The screenshot on the left includes more options, and if I go from left to right, you'll see that in the standard version, I could actually use my telephone to leave a comment, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But if this was active and I clicked there, a box would actually pop up on my screen, and I could type in my phone number, and VoiceThread would call me, and it would say, leave your message at the tone, and I would speak into my phone and hang up, and then my comment would be recorded on the screen. And so what that does is it even extends access, voice commenting access, to users who don't have mobile apps, who don't have access to the mobile app, and who don't have access to a microphone. And that's pretty significant as well. So that would actually work on a landline, or it'd work on a feature phone. And over on the far right, the arrow is an option to upload a pre-recorded MP3 comment file. Now, a few more things about some of the research, what it's showing about asynchronous voice interactions in online classes. It's really important to point out. We're seeing that these asynchronous voice interactions in online classes, as I've already noted in my introduction, it really does improve teaching presence and the student's sense of increasing their sense of community in a class. We're also seeing a significant increase in the way that it starts to improve social presence of the instructor and the students. And what social presence is it's the sense that a person is actually real in the way that they're communicating in an online class. And this starts to really increase the types of relationships and connections that students develop with one another. And that's something that's really important in terms of fostering a sense of trust and building community throughout a course over a period of time. So I really want you all to have the experience of seeing and hearing, and I like to say feeling, a VoiceThread. And so what Daryl's going to do here is queue up a link to a video. It's a brief video. It's just about a minute and a half. And this is actually a webcam comment from one of my students who has given me permission to share this with you all. And I just want to set this webcam comment up here. This is from a slide from one of my history photography formative assessment VoiceThreads. And if you read the prompt on the slide, you savvy educators are probably going to notice that what she actually shares doesn't really fulfill the prompt. But you may also notice up in the corner that it says one comment only. Many of my slides are very discussion-oriented and open-ended, and others are really focused, because these are formative assessments, and so my students go through. In some of the slides are more like fill in the blanks, and then I come in and leave my feedback, right on track, or rework things with my students. And then in the next unit, they go back and listen to everything, and then they take a quiz on the content. So I want you to understand that, because this slide has actually been fulfilled already, and then this student came in and actually left, Janet is her name, left this comment that I just want you to experience.
But as a child, I actually would play with something that looked like this, and you would hold it up to the light. And as you can see, it's very similar. That one's made of wood. This one here is of light plastic. And you would then put a reel into it. So I have here of Oak Creek Canyon in Arizona, and of Zion National Park. And you would put a reel, look like this, in here. And one thing that's different, of course, is this is in color. And this picture right here was the exact same picture of this one, so that's where you get the double exposure. And it was called a ViewMaster at this time, but it does relate or refer to the stereo. And I'll read this little small section. It says, ViewMaster reels add to the realism of stereo, to the beauty of color, to make pictures come to life. And it is in 3D, and it's something that as a little girl I played with all the time. So something that I just wanted to share with the class.
Okay, so as an educator, when we're trying to get students to engage with content, I think that one of the most important things that we want them to do is to really make deeper connections beyond just this kind of rote memorization, right? Looking at, okay, that's what this thing is and that's what it means. And we can do this in various ways, and I think that we are always hopeful that in some way students are making these deeper connections, things that we refer to as deep learning, where students are making these broader connections between what they're learning about and connecting them with events in their lives, the kinds of things that make them remember classes years later, right? And what I found is that more and more with VoiceThread, with the webcam comments, I find students just casually sharing things like Janet just did in that webcam comment, the way she picked up the ViewMaster and made this connection to a childhood memory and shared it with her classmates. And again, that's not a comment that she even got credit for, because it was above and beyond the participation requirements for this activity. But those kinds of things I think are really spectacular. I've had other students who have shared, when we're learning about historical types of photographic processes, they'll pull out examples of from their family archives, and they'll say, oh, for example, this is an old photograph of my great-great-grandfather, and they'll hold it up in the webcam comment. And those kinds of things aren't things you can do in a discussion forum. And so again, it kind of enriches learning beyond these ways that I even expect. And I think that we need to embrace that and think about ways that that can be rolled into our classes as well. So when we think about that webcam comment there, think about that student being mobile, and think about leaving mobile comments from somewhere else, and maybe writing a prompt that may be so open-ended that students could actually be recording a comment from a street corner or something like that, and how that could be tied into your curriculum and start to transcend learning from inside a classroom or a home, and just it just gets very exciting to me, as you can tell. But I think there's all kinds of possibilities there, and that's one of the things that I really love about teaching with these new tools, is because things just kind of spontaneously happen when you don't expect them to. This is another example of an English instructor using VoiceThread. I wanted to just share some examples of how people are using VoiceThread other than me. Just a real quick slide. This is not a video, but the bottom does have a link to the actual VoiceThread that you can do as homework later after the webinar if you'd so like to. This is by Janet Mitchell-Lambert, and she's actually an English instructor, and she's using VoiceThread to have her students engage in metacognition and reflection. This slide here has her students really kind of come together and think about how it went working as a group. And she's asking them what was the best part of working in your group and what would have been more helpful. And so you can think about if the students were able to listen to each other and reflect on what each other had to say, how that experience could benefit them and make that group experience improve over time. And this is one more video that Daryl's going to share with you, and let me explain what you're going to watch here. It's something a bit different. This is from an example of a VoiceThread that I'm sharing with permission, made by an instructor named Miki Sumitomo from Pasadena City College. And she teaches Japanese. And what you're going to see is that she's created this slide here using a video in the center of the VoiceThread. And she's actually using a video of a Japanese student introducing herself. And then after that, you're going to see her, Miki's webcam comment that has a prompt for her students to then come in and respond. And so it's as if she's trying to foster kind of this conversation with her students and get them to start practicing their Japanese language skills.
はじめまして。私は住友姫香です。日本人です。高校1年生です。どうぞよろしくお願いします。
Now you respond to her greeting and introduce yourself to her and your classmates in Japanese. 頑張って。
Okay, so I hope that starts to illustrate some of the different ways that you can, work media in, and some of the variety of ways that you can use VoiceThread to create different types of student interactions in your classes. There's certainly lots that you can do with the tool. So in my class in week 1, I do a technology assessment with my students, and one of the reasons I do this is because I do want to make it clear that I decided that it was important for me to actually start requiring my students to leave some voice or video comments, and I want to share with you why I decided to do this. I mentioned that I was not actually getting as many voice or video comments as I wanted with my students, and so I decided that I was going to start require them to do that. But the only reason I was going to start requiring it was very recently that I made this decision, within the last year actually, was because VoiceThread rolled out the mobile app, and also because I learned that with my premium account with VoiceThread, I could actually extend free phone commenting minutes. I could actually extend free phone commenting minutes to my students who did not have access to a video, to a webcam, or a microphone, or a mobile app. And so when I realized that, I thought everyone has access now. And that got me really excited, because I thought once everyone has access to the technology, it's really okay for me to require this. And so I made that decision, and so what I did was I surveyed my students in the week 1, and I put it in my syllabus. You won't be required in all VoiceThreads to leave voice or video comments, but there will be some that I will require you to. And so I wanted them to know that, and I survey them. I have a simple Google form, and I ask them, okay, what option are you going to use? And so by the end of the first week, I look at what option they've selected. And for the students who selected, I will use my phone to leave voice comments. And I say to them, if you check here, I'll set you up with free phone commenting minutes. I have them get set up by the end of the first week. And by the way, less than 2% of my students need that option. So just wanted to share that with you. So I have a question that I'm seeing here. Do all students have access to all comments left on a particular media piece? So when I set up a VoiceThread, when anyone sets up a VoiceThread, you have 2 options. You either have all the comments be visible to everyone, or you can use something called comment moderation, which makes you, the creator of the VoiceThread, basically the gatekeeper of the comments. I don't use comment moderation. I make all the comments available to everyone. So if I had comment moderation on, I'd have to go through and review every comment and then choose to make it available to the class or not. So I make them available to everyone. And then at week 4, I do a really quick check-in with my students, and I like to understand what they're actually using. So I asked them, I want to understand what's going on and what they're using. And I found that as I've been surveying my students over the past 3 semesters, about 12% of them are actually using VoiceThread Mobile to leave the voice or video comments. So I think that's really significant. And I wanted to share that with you because I do think that's really important evidence that we're seeing that the mobile app is expanding access to the voice or video comments. And this is critical too, because technology access is not the only thing that is a barrier to keeping students from participating in voice or video. I actually think it's the more minimal barrier, but it was the first one that we had to start with, because if students don't have access to the technology, I mean, for me, that was really where I had to start, particularly teaching at a community college. That was, the low-cost access is really important at community colleges. And so this is something I wanted to share with you. And it's also one of the reasons why I require the voice or video comments. I asked my students at week 4, before you left your first video or voice comment, how did you feel? And I have them rank their nerves, and this is what it looks like. And then I asked them, after you left your first video comment, how did you feel? And you can see how it shifts. And this is critical because once they get over that speed bump, that social anxiety speed bump, so many more of them just say, hey, this isn't so bad, and I actually kind of like it. And that for me has been really important. After the first few weeks, how has VoiceThread affected your learning in this class? I feel that I can get my messages across better because I can add inflections to my voice that cannot be conveyed in text. No one will have to wonder if I was trying to be funny or sarcastic. So more freedom, a little bit more openness in expressing their thoughts. I actually look forward to hearing other people's voices. I find it more interesting and fun than reading a textbook all the time. It helps to hear what the other students have to say in their own words. Speaking is a different experience than writing. Leaving a message gets me nervous at times, but I hate to be wrong with an answer I leave, then everybody can hear me. So a lot of those nerves and anxiety definitely still play a role for many students throughout the class. And then just to kind of tie up some of my big takeaways about teaching with VoiceThread is how much this multi-sensory learning environment supports the needs of so many different types of learners. When I think about learning, there's so many different dimensions. There's so many different dimensions about VoiceThread that support diversity in learning, and I think that that's fabulous. And I haven't touched upon the dyslexic students that I've had in my students who have flourished when they move out of an environment that requires them to learn purely through reading and writing. And that for me as an educator has just been such a huge experience to see that and to compare the expression of my dyslexic students in verbally versus writing. And by the way, I do still have a significant amount of writing in my class. My students write nearly weekly in blogging assignments, and so I just want to include that. It's an important part of my class. It's really improving the relevant connections that students make. And it also opens up so many opportunities for untethered learning that's woven into life. I receive many comments from students who say things like, it's so nice to be able to have access to my learning from anywhere. And I hear this actually from instructors also that I know who use VoiceThread and use the mobile app just to check in on their activities and listen to student comments and so forth from anywhere. If you're interested, I recently composed an article for the Faculty e-Commons that gets a little bit deeper into using VoiceThread for what I referred to as mobile learning quests, and I put together a VoiceThread that's embedded in this article. And there's been a number of comments shared that have some fabulous ideas about how VoiceThread Mobile could be used to create some mobile learning quests for your class. So I just wanted to reference this article because I think there's some great ideas there, and I'd love to see some more ideas be added to that VoiceThread. So that's another assignment for you. If you'd like to actually participate and leave a comment in that VoiceThread, I really encourage you to do that. So a few tips that I have for teaching with VoiceThread. offer it as an optional access method, share VoiceThreads with students using a group. And I didn't talk much about that, but VoiceThread has a feature called Groups. And when you create a VoiceThread, you'll see that there's basically 3 steps in creating a VoiceThread. You upload your content, you comment, and then you share. And in that step 3, share, is where you can create a group and then share your VoiceThread with that group. And so when I start a new class, basically I create a group just for that class. I provide that link to the group for my students, and then my students basically click on the link and they become members of the group. And I do that for every single class that I have. And then when I share my VoiceThreads with that group, only my students have access to them. So they're shared securely just with those students, and no one else can have access to them. For example, if someone named Susan in my class took the link to that VoiceThread and shared it with a friend named Sarah, Sarah could get the link in email, but if Sarah clicked on the link and opened it, it would say, I'm sorry, you don't have permission to view this VoiceThread. So it is secure and only visible to those who are actually a member of the group. So that's how the group sharing works. And when you embed a VoiceThread, include the link for mobile users. Since VoiceThread is Flash-based, remember if you're navigating a website, for example, like a class, an online class with an iPhone or an iPad or any other mobile device that does not read Flash, it won't appear. And so it's really important to include the link, because if I'm on one of those mobile devices, I could click on the link and then it would actually walk me over to the app. Survey students to identify mobile ownership and type, and design activities with mobile learning in mind. I think that that's just kind of a good strategy. It helps you kind of think outside the box and think about ways that you could actually weave them in. So Daryl, do you want to actually go for a few questions now before we do the demo?
That sounds like a great idea, Michelle. We've got several coming in, but let's just throw a few out there for now. And for those who are listening, and if we don't get to your question, we do apologize. It's all on time because we've got a cool demo coming up next. So we want to save time for that. But we will answer it after the fact. I promise you that. So here's one of the questions. It seems this would work well in a multi-week class, so they have time to post their assignments. What if it is a one-time class? Would you do it as pre-work? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I had an entire semester where I used VoiceThread in a flipped learning context, and it was a totally different way that I've talked about here. Actually, it's included in the opening chapter of my book, and I think it works pretty darn well for something like that. You could use VoiceThread as a content delivery tool, but what I used it for actually was I had my students listen to a lecture that I had created through a podcast. Again, this was years ago. But then I used the VoiceThread as a way to check in and kind of assess that they had actually engaged with the content. So it could have been a reading, a video, or anything that they had, the assignment that they had to complete. If you think about a flipped classroom, what's essential is that has to be some kind of check-in before they come to the class, because in a flipped classroom environment, you want the classroom time to be incredibly interactive and dynamic. And so you could use the VoiceThread as an opportunity you set it up in such a way that you're actually prompting them and asking questions about the material. And so what I did was that's exactly what I did. And so I had the VoiceThread be due prior to my students coming to class. And now what was fabulous about that was I spent like the 45 minutes before class listening to the VoiceThread. I just went through the VoiceThread and I made notes about all the different topics and what was really going well and what we needed to clarify. And then when class started, I projected it on the screen. And I used it as the catalyst to basically launch the discussion, and I could actually reference comments, and it was really awesome, and it allowed us to really use class time for the content that we really needed to go through more thoroughly, or just kick it up a notch and move into more higher level critical thinking about the content that we've already covered.
I love how engaging that is. It's just so compelling. Here's another question that came in very early in the session, Michelle. So you covered some of it, but I'll throw it out there anyway. And that is, the individual here is trying to understand VoiceThread. They think it seems really interesting, but they have some questions about, security, Flash, other things. So I guess they want kind of your unbiased opinion about those aspects.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what exactly the concerns are there. Usually when I hear people having concerns about security, it's about, having other students have access to the content. So I addressed that issue with the group sharing. That's really the best I can address that question. I haven't had any security problems that I've had to deal with at all. I don't know if that's a real IT-oriented question, asking something about Flash that maybe I don't quite understand. But in terms of sharing of content, what's great about VoiceThread is that you can share it securely, you can share it semi-privately so that it's actually available to anyone who has the link, or you could make it fully public, or you could change that at any point. So it's very fluid in terms of the access settings.
As you might imagine, we're getting questions here about, is the app going to be available for the Android platform?
Yeah, and that's a question that I would encourage you to send actually to VoiceThread, because I'm not the one on their development team, so I can't really answer that question. I hope it is. I hope it is.
Another question similar as far as availability, is there a big difference between the free VoiceThread account compared to the paid version?
Yeah, I'm really glad that question got asked, because that's a really important one. So if you were to go to voicethread.com today and create an account, that account would be free. Every account starts as a free account. And I do want to just kind of point out the basic, there's some really great things about the free account. For example, with the free account, it's unlimited text commenting and unlimited voice commenting. And you can comment with a webcam for up to 30 minutes. So that's 30 minutes for the life of your free account. So if you think about that, if you're a student, a free account actually works fabulously. That's basically what my students have always used. Now, if you're an instructor, you really have to upgrade that, because of the fact that a free account limits you to creating only 3 voice threads. So it's the creation part. When you start creating them, that's where you'll feel limited. And then there's other features too, like the file size increases and those sorts of things when you upgrade your account. And there's lots of different account types as well, and I'd really encourage you to go to voicethread.com and check that out. For example, you can upgrade to an individual account, department license, site license, that could also include student integration, so that there's a single sign-on for your students, so they don't actually have to create their accounts and those sorts of things as well.
So through the power of Twitter, I'm already seeing some people sad that the Android version isn't available yet, but what you don't know is that through the power of this control panel, we've learned that the Android version is coming imminently. So stay tuned, folks. That's a good thing. Michelle, I'm going to throw one more question at you for the sake of time here, and then we're going to go into the demo. The last question is it's a good one. It's, do students tend to voice comment with as much specificity as they might with text? Isn't it harder to grade for content?
Well, that's a good question. So I think that it all comes down to how you set up your grading criteria. That's what's essential. What is it that you're looking for? And that's what you always have to circle back to. So how specific do you want to be in that rubric? And that's how you ask yourself, is it harder to grade? That's the bottom line. And so for me, I'm always looking for, are you fulfilling the prompt on the screen? Are you fulfilling the prompt on the screen? And so when my students are starting out, I am very, very active in terms of providing feedback, in terms of the peer environment, and pointing out, oh, you did this really well, but remember, it's really important, you fulfilled this part of the prompt, but you didn't fulfill this part of the prompt. Remember, that's really important for earning full points for our VoiceThread activities. Are there differentiations, between the text and the voice? There can be. Every student's different, I find. I find that some students get more verbose with the voice, and some students are that, just kind of develop their ideas more with the text. I think it's just diversity of expression and preference.
All right, so what I suggest we do here, Michelle, is as you get ready for the demo, I'll set the stage for you because I know you've got a few things to do behind the scenes there. What I'll tell the users, though, in the interim, is that we have a little more information for you, and that is that the free accounts only allow the users to make 3 voice threads. So that's kind of a caveat. But if you want to learn out more about how to get some information on a site license for the schools, I'm told you can email inquiries@voicethread.com. So there you go. Check that out. Now, what you're seeing here is pretty cool stuff. You're actually seeing Michelle's iPad on your screen. I think this is the coolest thing. Michelle, tell us what we're looking at here and then take us away.
Okay, so this is my iPad. Yay! I know it's super cool. I'm thrilled. Daryl shared this very cool app with me. It's an app called Reflector, by the way. I'm sure you're all going to know how to do this because I was really excited about it. And so what I'm going to demonstrate for you is the VoiceThread app that you see living towards the bottom left of my screen here. And I'm just going to go ahead and what I want to explain to you here. So let's pretend like I'm a student. And let's pretend that I know that the learning unit that has just begun in my online class, I've already logged in maybe on my laptop, and I know that the unit is a VoiceThread activity, and I want to put mobily for whatever reason. There could be lots of reasons that mobile is just more convenient for me than sitting down at my laptop and working that way. Or maybe it's the only way that I have access to voice or video. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the VoiceThread icon, and it's going to open up. Now, if I was not logged in already, I would see a screen that would say join or log in, or join or sign in. And I skipped over that because I realized that if I signed in front of you, you'd actually see the individual letters of my password. So I just thought we'd skip right over that. But that would actually be the first screen. So this is what I'm greeted with. The first bar at the top, it says new comments, and that little red one basically just shows me that I have one voice thread that I have access to in total that has a new comment in it that I haven't actually read yet, okay? By the way, this is a kind of a demo account that I've created just for today, so if I had access to my account, it would look pretty different than this. Now, if I clicked on created with me, it would open up voice threads that I've created. There's no results there. Again, most students start a semester off where they just haven't created any yet. But if I was a student who is learning in a class, let's say, I'm 8 weeks into the semester and I click on shared with me, hey, look at that. I can see all the voice threads that my awesome instructor, Michelle Pacansky-Brock, has shared with the class. And you see that they basically just flow as they've been shared with the class. So down at the bottom, we see syllabus overview, and then we just see other voice threads. Now you see that these are called sample. My students don't actually see ones called sample, but I shared the sample versions for this demo here today. Okay, so let's say that I know that I need to participate in the icebreaker activity. And by the way, when I teach my classes, I share only the voice threads that are released for the particular units that have been released with the class. So, for example, if I was in the second week of the class and I was a student and I opened my mobile app, I would only be seeing the voice threads for week 1 and 2, okay? So just to explain how I do it in my class. So I'm going to go ahead and open the icebreaker sample, and this is what I see. I'm going to go ahead and click on that icon in the upper left corner, and it's going to open the voice thread. This comment's going to play. This voice thread is titled Photographs That Changed the World. To get started, go ahead and click on the, I don't know if you can hear that, but I want to show you that I'm going to play that again. I want you to see that how different the avatars, remember in the standard app, they aligned the sides of the slide. Well, in the mobile app, they actually show up at the bottom. So you can see that there's been 2 comments that have been left. And when I click on the first one, it plays. And with webcam comments, you can actually click on them with your finger and move them around into a place that works for you. Okay. And you'll see that the next comment is a text comment. And you see how it's just playing at the bottom of the screen there? Now I could just sit here and let this play if I wanted to just take my time. Or I could swipe it with my finger and go to the next slide and play the next comment. Okay, and I should have said that slide before. I had the text version of my comment that basically made the comment accessible. So it makes it 508 accessible. So I have a webcam comment and then a text version of exactly what I said. So it makes it accessible to students who may not be able to hear the webcam comment. This comment, I'm basically reading what's off the screen. So the screen is serving as that transcript. Now I want to point out that I am very much a learner, and so I'm showing you that you cannot read the overview, can you, at the top? And that's something that you learn when you look at your content more closely through the mobile app, and I think that's important to do. And it shows you the difference with, you know, the things that you need to be aware of as you design content for mobile. And so now I'm very aware that my slides, I need to leave some extra space at the top there because that bar at the top kind of cuts off some of my content when I'm viewing it through the mobile app here. So here are the instructions. So I'm going to click through some of these slides. I know you may be having some lag on your end, so I apologize. But I'm going to move to an image and let that render on your end for a second. I just want to leave a comment. I want you to see what commenting looks like, and then we'll wrap things up here. So I hope that you're seeing this fabulous slide here by Lewis Hine, one of my favorite photographers. And this is an icebreaker activity where I'm just asking my students to reflect on a photograph and talk about how it changed the world. So if I wanted to leave a comment, what I would do is I would click on that little plus sign. It would ask me, okay, do you want to leave your comment in text, voice, or video? I'm going to click on the voice option. It's going to give me a countdown. And I'm going to start speaking now. So now I'm recording my comment, and you can see that because the little red dot is flashing. I'm going to also click on that little white dot over to the right. We haven't talked about this, but look what happens. A rainbow palette extends, and I can click on any color in there. I'm going to click on orange, and I can use it to doodle on the screen and point out various features of the image that I find compelling. And then I can stop my comment by clicking at the bottom. So now I'm leaving and recording my comment. You can see that because the little red dot is flashing. I'm going to also click on that little white dot over to the right. We haven't talked about this, but look what happens. A rainbow palette extends, and I can click on any color in there. I'm going to click on orange, and I can use it to doodle on the screen and point out various features of the image that I find compelling. And then I can stop my... And then I would just click save in the lower right corner, and my comment would be saved to the screen, or to the VoiceThread. You see my avatar down at the bottom. And so that is basically how you leave a comment in a VoiceThread. Now, if I wanted to delete that, I could double click on my little avatar down there, and the comments open up in this type of list display, and it gives me an edit option. I can click on edit, and I can actually delete that comment by clicking on the minus icon and select delete, and it's gone. And so that's the other feature about VoiceThread, is that the individuals who leave the comments are always in control and can delete. And so I always let my students know, particularly the ones who are really, really nervous, you can delete any comment. Even after you decide to save it, you can always delete any comment that you leave. And then also the creator of the VoiceThread has the ability to delete any comment in the VoiceThread. But students or users cannot delete each other's comments. So I hope that illustrates how the app works. And of course, that syncs directly with the VoiceThread. If we were to then go look at it over on the web, it's all the same content. Thanks for being here, everyone. I think we're about out of time.
We are out of time, but I got to tell you, that's the coolest app. I'm so impressed with what I've seen here. And I know the audience has been impressed too. There's phenomenal discussion on Twitter. So folks, what I'm going to tell you now is we're at the end of our 1 hour session. We're going to bring up a final slide which is, as you can see in front of you, Michelle's contact information. As you can see, she's got a wealth of knowledge on this, especially as it relates, of course, to mobile learning, which is what IDML 13 was all about. So what do you do when you find somebody who's got that knowledge? You follow them on Twitter. Go do that. All right, you see right there in front of you, at Pacansky. Of course, if you're old-fashioned and you like email, because that works just as well, mind you, send her an email, mbp@academicpartnerships.com. She'd love to hear from you. If you like this whole session, and you want to share it with anybody, not to fear, we are going to send you a link in a few days via email to watch it on demand. You can share it with your friends and your peers, and you can discuss it amongst yourselves. And yes, there will be a link to the slides. And finally, we will resend links to the videos and the resources that Michelle referenced here. If you like this webinar series, we love producing them for you. We ask you keep on coming back. In the meantime, I want to say thank you to Michelle. Michelle, you were phenomenal today. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for all your help, Daryl.
Not a problem. It was a blast. And most of all, thanks to all of you for participating online on Twitter and in the question and chat section of the control panel. You're what make it fun. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you soon. Take care.